Hello, hello, fearless listeners. Are you ready for another episode of Let Fear Bounce? It's the podcast that's all about conquering challenges and facing our fears. I'm your host, Kim Langling, and each week we'll dive into inspiring stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you turn your fear into your greatest ally. So sit back, relax, grab that cup of coffee, and let's discover how to make fear our bouncing board towards a life filled with endless possibilities right here on Let Fear Bounce. Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. This is Kim Langling, your host, and I am so pleased that you're deciding to spend just a small part of your day with myself and my special guest today, Cathy Nesbitt. She's actually a returning guest, folks, and we both appreciate you taking the time to share with us today because we know that everyone's time is precious. Now, Cathy Nesbitt, she is a health and wellness advocate. She's also the founder of Cathy's Crawly Composters, established in 2002, Cathy's Sprouters, and Cathy's Laughter Club. She is a multi-award-winning innovator who uses workshops and inspirational speaking to motivate people to live a more sustainable life. She's also a certified laughter yoga teacher, appointed laughter ambassador in 2017 by Dr. Madan Kataria, founder of Laughter Yoga. She incorporates tapping, brain gym, Eden energy, and other healing modalities in her life. And she is also an avid cyclist and gardener. Welcome back again to Let Fear Bounce, Cathy. It's so good to see you again.
Thank you for having me again, Kim. I'm excited to share another part of my life with you.
And I've been excited about this because this is summertime. We're in full-blown summer right now and growing season, and everyone's got their gardens and stuff. But I think there might be folks out there that maybe they live in an apartment or they don't have a big yard or much of a yard, and they would love to still garden. I wanted to bring you back on so you can talk to folks about how they can do their own composting, even living in an apartment. They can start a bucket garden or whatever it is in whatever space that they live in. So I am so excited about this and what you can share with the listeners today.
Thank you. So let me tell you, my working title is Cathy Crawly Laughing Bean Queen. Simple.
Well, that's a mouthful.
Doesn't fit on a business card. It's just for audio or oral. So it's simple solutions for today's challenges. So it's the 22nd anniversary of my worm composting business.
Wow, 22 years. That is an accomplishment right there. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I started my business. I'm located in Canada, just north of Toronto, largest city in Canada. And in 2002, our landfill filled. And we're a pretty large country, second largest in the world. And we couldn't find a place to site a new landfill. So we started to export our garbage to the United States. Yes, and you're in Pennsylvania, so it's relevant.
We get some of your garbage. Yeah.
Yeah, almost 1,000 trucks a week at the beginning. The program, we found a place in Canada. And I really thought, geez, this is not sustainable. It's a waste of our tax dollars. Like, the government could say we don't have any money. We sent it all to Michigan.
Yeah, and then what's Michigan supposed to do in the long term?
Right. Yeah, it's just not sustainable all around to ship our garbage around. So I had a solution. And, Toronto, 6 million people in the greater Toronto area, half live in condos, townhouses without space for outdoor composting. So I started my business to address that issue for those folks, for people that are living in apartments. So this is really optimum that you started by saying, some people live in apartments, they don't have a garden, they don't have space, and they don't think they can grow anything. And we're here to change that today. Right? Like, first of all, we're converting some of our organic matter. So any container will do. Let me talk about how the worm composting works. We'll get right to the worms. Any container will work. There are systems, but the system isn't what makes it work. You still need to create the right environment. So we'll use like a Rubbermaid tote or a recycling bins, and whatever you've got, you can use that. A plastic bin is nice or easy because it's portable. You can move it around. So you need a carbon nitrogen mix, just like outdoor composting. the carbon or the bedding would be shredded paper, leaves, straw, cardboard, drink trays, that kind of material. And the nitrogen or the food scraps, or the nitrogen is the food scraps, coffee grounds, paper. If somebody had a guinea pig or any of those little animals, the shavings can also be added right into the bedding or into the vermicomposter.
I have a question.
Yes.
What about eggshells? Because I've heard both for and against, and I'll be honest, I tried eggshells and they started to stink so bad.
In the compost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, eggshells are a necessary component or something like that. You need calcium carbonate or something to balance the pH.
So
So
how do you have your eggshells not end up stinking like rotten eggs?
yeah. So what I do with eggs is once I've cracked the egg, I give them a rinse and then I air dry them. So once you rinse that goo out, like the protein or whatever, the membrane that's still left in there, then you air dry them. I just have a jar on my counter, toss them in, and then I just crush them with my Vitamix plunger thing.
Okay, I didn't rinse mine. I just let them dry. That
Yeah.
was my problem, which, makes sense now that I think about it and say it out loud.
Right. Yeah. And it's fine. It's just that that's going to be annoying for us.
Yeah.
This is
Well,
aerobic,
I was learning. I didn't know what I was doing, so there we go. Live and learn.
right? Learning all the time. I love it. Yeah, this is aerobic process. Odor is one of the things that people go, oh, because you're putting rotting food in. Is it not going to smell? So I'm here to bust all the myths. It's
Awesome.
aerobic. It's aerobic process, meaning with oxygen. So it should never smell like rotting food, rotten eggs. um, if it has a bad odor, the oxygen has now been converted into methane, into gas.
So
So
it's
it's a
not getting enough air.
That's it. Yeah. So it could be a few things. Could be too wet, not enough oxygen, it could be too much food. It could be a combination of factors. But if it smells, that oxygen is not oxygen anymore. It's now gas. Bad for us. We don't breathe gas, and the worms don't breathe gas either. So a built-in mechanism to let us know, oh, something's happening, action is required.
So
Um,
it's best practice to have a good mix of both, like the paper, cardboard, and your other matter, like food scraps.
Yeah, so you're dry and your wet materials are browns and greens. So your browns are your carbon, your shredded paper, leaf straw, cardboard, and the wet material, the green, is your food scraps, coffee grounds, that type of material.
Gotcha.
And yes, kind of a combination, but you do start with a goodly amount of bedding. Say if you're using a Rubbermaid, half full of moist bedding. Once you get your bedding set up, it should be about half full. And then the worms are eating both the carbon and they're eating the nitrogen. They eat both. But when you're adding the food scraps, you bury it in the bedding. And that's so you don't get fruit flies.
Okay. Again, makes sense. See, we
Yeah.
need someone like you to explain it to us.
Right. That's it. And
Yeah.
it's not that the worms care if you get fruit flies, but they're going to bug somebody. Fruit flies, just so people know, don't cause any disease. They don't carry any pathogens. They don't cause trouble for humans or pets. They
They're just
bug us.
annoying.
They're just annoying. They bug us because we call them bugs.
Right. Right.
Right. So the fruit fly eggs are on all of the fruit, but we wash the apple or we wash the pear before eating. The banana, we don't. We just peel the banana and eat the banana. So the eggs are still intact. If we take that banana peel and put it in our worm bin, that warm, moist environment is the perfect environment for the fruit fly eggs to hatch and fly around and bug us. So something I would recommend with anything you don't wash first is give it a quick rinse. And I do suggest having a little container to allow the scraps to start to decompose first. So here's what you could do. Have a container, many banana peels or any of your stuff, give it a quick rinse, and then chop it up while it's still fairly fresh and not gross and gooey. Add it into your bin, and then you don't even need to handle it again. You would just take that material from the bin, pull back your bedding, and dump your container.
So what kind of air, like if say you've got a Rubbermaid container like you're talking about, and you've got it all set up and you've been putting your stuff in, how do you get air to it? Do you have to drill holes in the lids or how does that work?
Yes, thank you. Yes, you need to have holes in your bin. If you're going to put your bin outside, it can be outside spring, summer, and fall in our where we live in North America. Ideally indoor year round, because the worms don't like temperature change. During a heat wave during the day, it might be too hot, then it cools down at night. So it's the shift in temperature that's disruptive for the worms. So we say room temperature is ideal. So if you're comfortable, the worms are. And I'm bilingual, we talked about this before. So 16 to 28 Celsius or 60 to 80 Fahrenheit is ideal temperature. So the holes, if you're going to be putting your bin outside at all, I would suggest not putting in the lid, because then if it rains, it may get too wet.
Right.
So what you can do is put them around the holes around the top, or not the top, but the edge of, like, towards the top of the bin, around the edge. And you can't have too many holes. The worms don't have bones, they can crawl out of any hole. You can put them in the top as well. Just if you're going to put it outside, don't put them in the top.
Right. So just around the edge or the lip of the bin or whatever container you have would be ideal.
Is sufficient. Yes. And then maybe one hole in the bottom, just to allow moisture. If it gets too wet on the bottom, if you don't have a system, just a single unit, you need some way to get the moisture out. So if it gets too wet, you could, so I do suggest having one hole, maybe have it taped or something so it's covered. And then if it gets too wet, you can take the tape off, elevate one end, so the moisture will be brought down to the other end and will drain off. Or you could get up, like a knee-high or pantyhose, that kind of material, stuff it with peat moss or coconut coir, stuff it down the side, and that will absorb the excess moisture. Then you can take that moistened peat moss or whatever you're using and put it out in your garden.
Oh, what a neat little tip.
Yeah, I'm full of it.
So what about folks that are doing composting, but they're not using worms?
Yeah, well, so this would need to be outside then. It's not that it's not possible, it's just that it's really difficult to manage, and the worms speed up the process. And
Okay.
they also eat the odor. Like, once your worms are established, you have a beautiful, it's a wonderful ecosystem of all these microbes. We can't see them, bacteria, mites, springtails. And I don't want anyone to freak out thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want all those things. We have them already. They're us.
Right.
They are us. We're
We just
more
don't see them.
bacteria.
They're all over us.
Right. We just don't see it. So creating the right environment. I forgot what you had asked.
Well, I know a lot of folks, and myself included, have like a big compost bucket or one of those things that you twirl every once in a while. But they don't have worms. They just chuck their compost in there, or they have like a compost pile that they throw their stuff on. It's like out at the back of their property or whatever. These are, of course, for folks that have space, and they don't have worms. So I was just wondering. So currently, I have an old bucket that had a big plant in it. So it already has the holes and stuff around the bottom. And then I throw the stuff in there, my paper and my leaves and whatever I'm weeding, and throw that in there and what have you. And then I put another bucket on top of it, just inside of it, and just let it go.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's so beautiful. So adding worms to an outdoor composter, not the turny ones. They don't like the Ferris wheel.
Okay, who would?
So if you've got a turny one, so you're adding the worms because they aerate it. They're turning the material, they're, investigating all in there, and so they do the aeration for you.
It's actually their poo that's the amazing stuff, right?
It is. That's the black gold, yes.
Black gold, there we go. I couldn't remember what you called it before.
Right, yeah, it's nutrient-rich fertilizer. So anyone that gardens, if you're buying triple mix or composted cow manure, sheep manure, the composting industry is not regulated. So we really don't know what we're buying.
Interesting. And I bet a lot of folks did not know that.
A lot of folks really don't know that. They just go and they buy it. It says, it's in a plastic bag and it says composted cow manure or whatever, whatever it is, it says.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest. I bought a couple bags, a few bags of composted cow manure, and my plants are not loving it.
Yeah. So if the compost or soil or anything that you buy, if it's in a plastic bag and it's sealed, it's dead. There's no life in there because there's no
There's no
oxygen.
air. Right, right,
Right?
right.
So this is living compost, and worm compost is living, active
It's a whole
material.
environment. It's a whole environment there.
It is. So
Living, living
it's a
environment.
living environment. And municipalities, like, after my business is pre-green bin or organic collection. So Toronto, large city, we're spending a lot of money to ship our garbage to the US. We need a solution. So we came up with it's called the green bin program, and it's really ridiculous, but okay. I'm not in charge. And I say that because it brought awareness to the value of the food scraps, but now we're depending on individuals to do the right thing. And we know from the recycling program, the individual does not do the right thing. They want to, but we don't always know what that is
I was just going to say, a lot of times we just don't know or don't understand
or care.
or care. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Or care. Because there's, I mean, I live in the country and I'm very aware, and I think it's because I live in the country. I'm very aware of the environment, the animals, the food that they eat, what I'm putting out there, into the environment and into my garbage. I'm aware of that, but I've always lived in that. So if I was raised and grown in a city, I would know nothing about. I would just be like, my food comes from the fridge and I throw all my garbage in the bag,
Right? That's the
And I'm not
challenge.
being negative. That's just how you were raised and what you know.
What we don't know what we don't know. And I do a lot of school workshops. Again, Toronto, pretty giant urban jungle. Like a lot of cities, right? They're very densely populated. Um, some kids that I've educated have never even seen a worm before, never mind held one. Like, of course, they're afraid of it.
Well, they
And
probably don't even know where their garbage goes.
well, all of these things, where the food comes from, where
Yes.
the garbage goes, all of that. And if we don't know about something, we can't care about it. And I use the forest as an example. If we've never been to the forest, why would we care if they cut it down? We've
Right.
we've never been there. So it doesn't affect me. It does. We know it does,
Right. Yeah.
but we don't
Rationally.
know.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
So
it's funny because you mentioned forest, and if you don't know about the forest or you've never been there, you probably don't care. I have trees in my backwoods that are dying for some reason and falling over, and it makes me incredibly sad.
right,
I'm
of
like,
course.
what's wrong? Can I do anything to help you? Because we need that. We need our trees and our environment to be healthy so we can be healthy.
It's the oxygen. Uh,
Indeed.
right. And it takes the carbon dioxide that we breathe out, the trees take it in and make it oxygen. It's
Yeah,
this beautiful
it
relationship
is. So
that we
I'm going to ask you if you could give the listeners 3 tips on, and however it is that you want to present it, on how they can best either start or manage or consider starting their own little compost in their house. 3 tips to take away the fear of that, like, ooh, the fear of smell, ooh, the fear of worms, or won't that be dirty and gross? Take that fear away from the listeners, because there is, it's nothing to be afraid of, folks. It's all natural. But if do you have three tips that you can give someone who's considering, or someone that's listening right now going, I never thought about doing that. Oh, I can do that in my house? Do you have three
right.
tips to give that novice, to give the novice person, the novice composter?
Yes, I do. So just jump in. It's really not so scary. The scary part is probably the worms. If you had some traumatic thing happen with worms, and know that they don't have teeth, they have 5 hearts each. They're just loving creatures that are just eating your material and pooping out black gold. So if we change our mind, the thing is, I do school workshops again, and I'll bring out the compost, and I'll say, oh, I'm holding, because I say it goes from this, and I show a bin with paper and the food scraps, and then I say it turns it into this, into the black gold. And then I'll grab a handful of the compost and I'll say, oh, almost pure worm poo, on purpose, right?
You're
And then a
right.
bunch of kids will say, ew. And I say, good, okay, thank you. So yes, if I call this poo, it's like, ooh, flush it away, gross. But if I call this black gold that it is, then it's like, oh, this is precious because it is. It's where our food comes from, right? That we know very little about. So just jump in, watch some videos. I've got a great one, Vermicomposting 101, very simple how to set up your bin. You don't need to spend a lot of money. Buy your worms from a reputable dealer. I can't send to the States, so I'm not here pitching you. Just look for, there's lots of suppliers in the States. Look for red wiggler worms. Don't get them on Kijiji. Buy them from a reputable dealer so you know you're getting them the right worm and
So
the right
that name
volume.
again was red wiggler worm.
Red wigglers or European night crawlers are the best one for North America.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just get a bin, a Rubbermaid, poke some holes in it, fill it with half full of shredded paper, a little bit of soil from outside where there's no chemicals being applied, just like a shovel, like a little scoop of soil for the microbes, 6 to 8 crushed eggshells, and water. And you mix that all together. It's not layered. You mix it together, do a squeeze test. A few drops should come out. If no water comes out, add a bit more water. If it's really wet, then just add some more dry bedding. Again, mix it up one more time. Add your worms on top. They'll naturally make their way in. And then when you're feeding your food scraps, you just pull back the bedding. The more you chop it up, the faster it breaks down, the more the worms, rather than adding a whole apple in or something, right? So chop it up. And then, yeah, you'll be amazed. I would say just jump in. And if you have kids, if you have any fear of worms and you have children, they'll be happy to do that. And you can
Oh yeah,
let
I
them
know.
know.
What a fun thing to do for parents and kids to watch how that whole natural process all happens.
It's like nature's magic show.
Yeah.
It's you can't watch them because they don't like the light. But you can, when you go to feed them the next time, it's like, oh my gosh,
Right. You
that
can see
banana
the
peel's
changes.
gone.
Yeah.
Right? You can do experiments. Do they like lettuce better than cabbage? Or, and then that black gold, what do you do with the compost once you have it? We talked about if you live in an apartment. So if you have a balcony, that's great. You can have some planter boxes on your balcony, grow some lettuce, grow some herbs. When we grow food, we don't waste that food. We spent time watering it and weeding it and patiently watching it and taking care. So when it's ready, when that, lettuce is ready, it's so delicious. It's super fresh. And we didn't spend a lot of money to get it. So you can have you can have pots so you can move them around. Even if you don't have a balcony, if you have a window, you can have a little plant in your window and like something edible. And it's so satisfying. It just helps us understand that food is delicious when we grow it ourselves. What a tomato's really supposed to taste like. I'm sure in Pennsylvania you also get those cardboard winter tomatoes, which are
Yes.
awful.
Yes. And when you grow your own, there's no comparison.
Right? They're juicy, they're still warm.
And the taste is just amazing. And
Yes.
I even love the smell of when you freshly pick that first tomato off your plant in the summer. I literally just smell it because it's just one of the, and I have a very tiny garden. I have maybe 5 or 6 plants, because it's just for me. But I put so much care into it and try and teach myself and learn something each season, each new year. Okay, what can I do better? How can I make this? But when you pick that first cucumber, that first zucchini, it's funny. I always smell it.
That makes sense. I love that. Yeah. Right. It's all of our senses though, Kim. Like it is
Yes.
not just the taste, it's the smell, how it looks and how it feels. And another part of composting and gardening is when we are gardening, even on our balcony or if in our small patch, we're not on our cell phone,
Exactly.
right? We've slowed down, we're connected. And if we happen to be barefoot, I hope you are, because
Always.
right, then we're earthing.
Yes,
We
we're
we
grounding. We are connected to the earth.
we need that magnetism from the earth. Once we started wearing shoes, we got disconnected from Earth's healing power.
And I know a lot of folks because I've heard them. They're like, "Oh, well, that's that grounding. That's all woo-woo stuff." You haven't been barefoot out in the yard in a while, have you?
Right. And this was, brought to the fore from, I think it was 2009 or 2010. A cable guy discovered earthing. And now that's why we have earthing mats and stuff. So even if you can't get out there, you can buy products that will connect you as if you're
And I
earthing.
think that's something that has been since time began. There just wasn't a name for it.
Right. But yes, that's the truth. But he brought the science, and he went to, oh, I can't remember. It's earthingmovie.com if anyone wanted to
Oh, awesome.
see the science behind, and it's free to watch online. And talking about his story, how he was like, oh, this is so great. And he went to, I don't know, UCLA, he went to different universities trying to get them to do research, and they said he was nuts. Until he actually, hooked it up and showed the science. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, there is something here.
See, I think it's always worth the time to learn more about your environment and how you fit in it and how you can live a more healthier life in it. No matter where you live, city, country, suburbs, what have you. I think it's always, and that's just me, it's my opinion, folks. I have to have nature in my life on a daily basis. I have to have the time to be outside each day. And I do, and I'm very blessed because I can do that. I'm always thankful every day. But no matter where you're at, folks, city, wherever, make sure you get that time to be outside. Now, you don't necessarily have to go barefoot, but at least get outside for 10 minutes a day, if that's all you can do, and just breathe. Get outside. Be near somewhere green. Be in touch with, nature, because there's so much healing power in that.
And self-care is healthcare. If we don't look after
Yes.
ourselves, then we're doing only a half part job.
We're doing ourselves a disservice if we don't care
Yeah.
for ourselves. Yes. And in the hustle and bustle and the rushing of life, believe me, I know how it is. Cathy, I'm sure you do too. You've got married folks, you've got young mamas out there with young kids, and they're just rush, full-time job, got to do this. You have to take time for yourself, or you will burn out, and you're going to end up not feeling good, end up ill and down for the count. And the world needs you, all of you out there listening. So, I know a lot of you are younger that tune into this show. The world needs you. So we need you to be healthy so you can stick around.
That's so beautiful. That's it. Either you take care of yourself now, or you'll need to take care of yourself later, and it's going to be a lot more work. It's going to be more painful later on.
That's right. That is right. Well, Cathy, this has been, the time goes so fast, and this has been such an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for, again, coming on to be my guest. And I want to have you on again. I love chatting with you because I learn something new from you every time. But before we wrap up, I always ask my guests to please toss out a nugget of hope to the listeners, something that they can carry with them for the rest of the day. So what would your nugget of hope be today?
My nugget of hope today would be to take action. Do something, like something that you want to do. Take a step in that. Because someday never comes. If you're like, oh, someday I'm going to do this, make today that someday that you take a step. Because once we take a step, another step is easier, and then we get momentum. Even if it's a teeny step, taking that step will move you in the direction that you want to go.
What an awesome nugget. I love that. And then when you said someday never comes, you're right, because it's always just someday. Wow, deep. Mic drop on that one. Thank you once again for being my guest today. This has been so awesome. And folks, I hope that you caught all of the stuff that she's been tossing down for you today. And you too can start your own little composting no matter where you live, and have healthy stuff that you can start your own little gardens or your own little bucket garden. So good luck with all of that. And hey, let us know how it goes. We want to hear about it. If you want to find out more about Cathy and all the amazing stuff she does, that is all in the show notes. And if you're watching or listening on YouTube, that'll all be down in the description. Thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. This is your host, Kim Langling. Everybody be well, stay well, and be blessed. And that is a wrap, my fearless friends. Thanks for bouncing along with me on another episode of Let Fear Bounce. I hope you're feeling a bit motivated and ready to take on any challenge that might come your way in the coming days. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode of Let Fear Bounce. Tune in each week for your dose of inspiration from my amazing guests from all over the world. So until next time, keep bouncing forward and stay fearless, my friends. Everybody be well, stay well, and above all, be blessed.